Hello. The other day I made a recording of Chapter 5, Healing and Wholeness, Section 5, The Ego's Use of Guilt. And good thing I listened to it because I cut myself off partway through. I was talking, making this recording, and apparently I turned it off. I probably paused, and instead of hitting pause again, I hit stop. Okay, so it was probably meant to be. Probably what will come through me will be more helpful than what came through me the first time. Let me find where I was. Okay, there it is. All right, so picking up from the part 1, we'll start at chapter 5, section 5, paragraph 5, 555. Well, that's interesting. Okay. The guiltless mind cannot suffer. Being sane, the mind heals the body because it has been healed. The sane mind cannot conceive of illness because it cannot conceive of attacking anyone or anything. I said before that illness is a form of magic. It might be better to say that it is a form of magical solution. The ego believes that by punishing itself it will mitigate the punishment of God. Yet even in this, it is arrogant. It attributes to God a punishing intent and then takes this intent as its own prerogative. It tries to usurp all the functions of God as it perceives them, because it recognizes that only total allegiance can be trusted. Okay, so the ego recognizes something correct. Only total allegiance can be trusted. It's just, where are we going to place our total allegiance? We're learning to place our total allegiance in what is real. So this time around, something different got highlighted for me as I was reading, different than the first time. Being sane, the mind heals the body because it has been healed. So when the mind is sane, because it has been healed, it heals the body. You'll notice nowhere in there does it refer to the personality of you as a separate one healing the body. So you can take that burden away. That is not your job. You get to be free right now. We do have one responsibility. That's accepting the atonement for ourselves. That's allowing perception correction. And so when the mind is healed, the mind heals the body because it has been healed. So the mind heals the body, and what are we responsible for? Accepting correction into the mind, accepting perception correction. So that feels much lighter to me. Being sane, the mind heals the body because it has been healed. Okay, paragraph 6. The ego cannot oppose the laws of God any more than you can, but it can interpret them according to what it wants, just as you can. That is why the question, what do you want, must be answered. You are answering it every minute and every second, and each moment of decision is a judgment that is anything but ineffectual. Its effects will follow automatically until the decision is changed. Remember, though, that the alternatives themselves are unalterable. The Holy Spirit, like the ego, is the decision. Together they constitute all the alternatives the mind can accept and obey. The Holy Spirit and the ego are the only choices open to you. God created one, and so you cannot eradicate it. You made the other, and so you can. Only what God creates is irreversible and unchangeable. What you made can always be changed, because when you do not think like God, you are really not thinking at all. Delusional ideas are not real thoughts, although you can believe in them. But you are wrong. The function of thought comes from God and is in God. As part of His thought, you cannot think apart from Him. Okay, so what stood out to me there is delusional ideas are not real thoughts, although you can believe in them. So whenever I feel pain, suffering, disquiet, fear, any disturbance, I am believing in delusional ideas. That is why. It's not because of anything out there in the world that looks like cause. right? It looks like something or someone in the world, some circumstance, some condition caused my disquiet, caused my stress. But waking up is about realizing, oh, it's not that. The cause of my distress right now, the cause of my mildest irritation right now is that I believed that my delusional idea was my real thought, and that's not so. So what can I ask? I can set aside my delusional idea, whatever it is, and I can ask to have my real thoughts revealed to me. I can ask to have my perception corrected. That's always going to bring me relief. That's very consistent. And as we practice this, we learn to lean on what's consistent. Delusional ideas are not real thoughts, although you can believe in them. Okay. Paragraph 7. Irrational thought is disordered thought. God himself orders your thought because your thought was created by him. Guilt feelings are always a sign that you do not know this. They also show that you believe you can think apart from God and want to. Every disordered thought is attended by guilt at its inception and maintained by guilt in its continuance. Guilt is inescapable by those who believe they order their own thoughts and must therefore obey their dictates. This makes them feel responsible for their errors, without recognizing that by accepting this responsibility, they are reacting irresponsibly. If the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself, and I assure you that it is, then the responsibility for what is atoned for cannot be yours. The dilemma cannot be resolved except by accepting the solution of undoing. You would be responsible for the effects of all your wrong thinking if it could not be undone. The purpose of the atonement is to save the past in purified form only. If you accept the remedy for disordered thought, a remedy whose efficacy is beyond doubt, how can its symptoms remain? Okay, so guilt feelings show that you believe you can think apart from God and want to. So any disturbance at all is about that original guilt, that I believe I successfully separated from our Creator and that separation is real. So any feeling of disturbance, basically, it shows that I believe I can think apart from God and I want to. So in any moment of disturbance or stress, I can recognize this. I believe that I want to think apart from God. And I can turn around in this moment. I actually don't want to think apart from God. I'm willing to be shown how to think in alignment with God. I actually don't want to do what I have been doing. I don't want to be oriented facing in the direction where I have been facing. I am willing to be turned around. I am willing to have my real thoughts given to me. So if we go from the feeling of distress or disorder or irritation or annoyance or rage or however it presents itself to our willingness, I'm actually willing to be shown. I'm suffering. My suffering is always self-created and I don't want to suffer anymore. So show me how I can think with God. Okay. The continuing decision to remain separated is the only possible reason for continuing guilt feelings. We have said this before but did not emphasize the destructive results of the decision. Any decision of the mind will affect both behavior and experience. What you want, you expect. This is not delusional. Your mind does make your future, and it will turn it back to full creation at any minute if it accepts the atonement first. It will also return to full creation the instant it has done so. Having given up its disordered thought, the proper ordering of thought becomes quite apparent. Okay, so the continuing decision to remain separated is the only possible reason for continuing guilt feelings. So when I have any feeling of disturbance, I'm continuing to decide to remain separated. It's important to look at this decision, to understand that I have a decision. And then what can I do? I can go in and find my willingness. What happens? That spark of willingness within each one of us cannot die, no matter what illusions we're making. It cannot die. So if I refer to that spark of willingness within and I focus there, what happens? Holy Spirit expands my willingness. If I focus in on that willingness. So whenever I don't feel good for any reason, if I can remember to take a moment to focus in on that willingness, to be shown, to end, to decide against remaining separated, to decide for our actual unity, Holy Spirit takes that spark of willingness and expands it and expands it and expands it. So I remember more often when I'm not feeling good in any tiny way, it's time to go in and have my willingness expanded. And then all will become apparent, all will become clear. So the continuing decision to remain separated is the only possible reason for continuing guilt feelings. We can remember that. The only reason we could feel bad is because of a decision we ourselves made. So we're never powerless. Okay. Thank you, and happy healing.